It was supposed to be a celebration. My little sister Sarah had just gotten engaged, and my mother insisted we all come together for a proper family meal. She said it like we were a normal family, like we hadn't been pretending for years. I wore a clean button-down, brought a bottle of wine I couldn't really afford, and showed up on time, just like I always did. Dad was already halfway through his second bourbon when I walked in. The rest of the family smiled stiffly. Even the dog looked uncomfortable. Dinner was awkward in that quiet, surgical way. Sarah beamed while showing off her ring. My older brother Mason talked about his new job at the investment firm. Mom asked if I was still doing that construction stuff. I nodded. Said I'd actually just led a team that completed a $1.2 million renovation ahead of schedule, even made the local paper. I pulled out my phone to show them the photo of me with the mayor. That's when Dad barked a laugh. "Oh Jesus," he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You think wearing a tool belt and swinging a hammer makes you special?" He leaned forward, eyes glossy and mean. "Let me tell you something, Rick. No one gives a damn about your little side gigs. You're not a success. You're not even a disappointment. You're just wasted potential." I stared at my plate. Mom shifted in her seat but said nothing. Mason cleared his throat. Sarah looked down at her phone. "You know what I regret?" Dad continued, voice rising. "Adopting you. Biggest damn mistake I ever made. Thought I could fix you. Turn trash into something useful." Then he spit, right there at the table. Spit on me like I was dirt on his shoe. It hit my shirt, slow and warm, and for a second I couldn't breathe. My hands were fists in my lap. Not because I wanted to fight him, but because I didn't trust what would happen if I let go. I stood, took my keys, didn't say a word. I left the wine behind. I was 6 when the Wilsons adopted me. My birth parents were long gone, father incarcerated, mother OD'd in a halfway house. I bounced through 3 foster homes before landing in their oversized suburban dream just outside St. Paul. From the outside, it looked like salvation. 2-car garage, trimmed hedges, polite neighbors who waved. Inside, it was a silent test I never quite passed. My adoptive father, Charles, was a towering figure, literally and figuratively. 6'3", ex-military, now a regional VP at a logistics firm. He wore suits on Sundays, read financial reports at breakfast, and expected obedience like it was air. My mother, Anne, was gentler but passive, all apologies and soft smiles that disappeared when he walked into the room. Their 2 biological kids, Mason and Sarah, were picture perfect. Blonde, polite, high-achieving. They looked like catalog children. I looked like a factory recall. From the start, I knew I was different. Not just because of the skin tone that didn't match theirs, or the photo albums, where I didn't appear until page 20. But in how Charles shook Mason's hand like a peer and ruffled Sarah's hair like she was made of glass, and how he looked at me like a misplaced file on his desk. I'd bring home B+ report cards and get told to aim higher. Mason would get a C and be handed a milkshake. I tried. God, I tried. Joined baseball even though I hated it. Took AP classes I barely understood. Learned to mow the lawn just the way he liked it. Diagonal stripes, alternating each week. It was never enough. At 13, he caught me drawing in the garage and snapped my sketchbook in half. "You want to waste your life playing with crayons?" he barked. "You're not one of those inner-city art kids anymore. You're a Wilson now. Act like it." So I stopped drawing. I worked. Fixed bikes. Learned tools. Built things with my hands because I thought maybe building things would build me. But nothing ever bridged the gap. I was always just the kid they rescued. A burden dressed up as a good deed. A constant reminder, to Charles at least, that sometimes charity comes back to bite you. And he never let me forget it. They saw the dirty fingernails, not the engine I rebuilt. Saw the grease on my jeans, not the hours I spent learning the wiring of a 2003 Civic, just to make it run again without a mechanic. I bought that car at 17 for $600 from a guy who called it scrap metal with a title. I spent a whole summer fixing it in the driveway, sometimes until 2 a.m., flashlight in my mouth, hands raw. When it finally roared to life, I asked Dad to come outside and see. He stood on the porch, arms crossed, and said, "Hope you didn't waste more money than it's worth." Then he went back inside. That's how it always was. I'd work late-night shifts at the hardware store, then be up at 6 to help shovel the driveway so Mason could make it to his internship. No thanks. No recognition. Just a passing, "should have done it last night," from Dad. I graduated from a trade program with honors, specialized in HVAC systems, had a job offer before I even walked across the stage. No one came. Not Mom. Not Mason. Not Charles. I sat through the ceremony watching other families cheer while I clapped for myself. But I kept going. I kept trying. I wasn't trying to impress strangers. I was trying to matter to them. Every nail I drove, every hour of overtime I worked, it wasn't for the paycheck. It was for a seat at that damn dinner table where someone might finally say, "We're proud of you." I didn't need balloons or parades. I just wanted to stop feeling like a charity case who hadn't delivered a return on investment. And still, nothing. Not even a nod. Not even eye contact. My wins didn't count, because they weren't on the path they understood, the one with degrees and offices and framed photos on company websites. I wasn't their kind of successful. I was useful when something broke, quiet when they needed peace, invisible when they wanted to forget they'd ever brought me into their world. I told myself I didn't care, that I didn't need their approval. But late at night, I'd catch myself daydreaming about it. Just once, hearing Dad say, "That's my son." Just once, feeling like I actually belonged to the name I carried. After that dinner, I didn't go home. I drove around until my gas light came on, parked under a flickering street lamp, and stared at the cracked windshield of my car until morning. My phone buzzed all night. Mom, Sarah, even Mason. He didn't mean it. He was drunk. "Just come talk it out." I turned the phone off, blocked them all. There was nothing left to talk about. I stayed with my buddy Kyle for a week. Crashed on his couch, barely spoke. He didn't press. Just left coffee on the counter and tossed me the remote when I looked like I needed it. On the 8th day, I found a basement apartment through a guy I met on a job site. It smelled like paint thinner and had one window the size of a shoebox. But it was mine. The first space that didn't come with conditions or expectations. I started going to work early. Stayed late. Took on the worst jobs. Crawl spaces, broken boilers, roof units in the rain. Anything that kept me moving. Anything that made me too tired to think. Depression doesn't always show up in tears. Sometimes, it's just silence. Long showers. Unanswered texts. Dinners eaten over the sink with the lights off. But in the noise of my work, I found a kind of clarity. The rhythm of tools. The clean lines of a finished install. No judgment. No half-hearted praise or backhanded compliments. Just the satisfaction of a job done right. I kept my head down, took freelance gigs on the side, built a small reputation for being dependable, even when I didn't feel like much of anything at all. There were nights I lay awake, wondering if maybe they were right. Maybe I was just a mistake dressed in overalls. But then, I'd think of that Civic. The way it came back to life under my hands. Nobody believed in that car, either. Except me. So I got up. I kept going. Not for them. Not anymore. For the kid, I used to be the one who never stopped hoping he'd earn a place at the table, not realizing the table had been rigged from the start. It started with a busted furnace. A neighbor in my building had no heat. Said the landlord wouldn't come until Monday. I offered to take a look. 20 minutes and a reset switch later, she handed me $50 and a tray of cookies. "You should do this for real," she said. That night, I couldn't sleep. My fingers typed before I could talk myself out of it. I bought a domain, made a logo in Canva, and called it Fix Fast. At first it was just word-of-mouth neighbors, coworkers, friends of friends. I'd get texts at 10 p.m. about leaky faucets or shorted outlets. I never said no. I'd finish my shift, grab my toolkit, and work until midnight. I made a simple site where people could book time slots, a calendar that synced with my phone. Nothing fancy. Just clean, quick, reliable, like I wanted to be. I didn't tell many people. Not because I was ashamed, but because I'd learned to keep the things I cared about close to the chest. The minute I talked about my wins, someone tried to measure them against a ruler I never agreed to. I wasn't interested in validation. I wanted momentum. Within 6 months, I was getting regular weekend bookings, enough to upgrade my tools, buy a branded shirt, print cards. I filed an LLC, paid taxes, built something that belonged to me. On paper, it was a side hustle. In reality, it was a quiet rebellion. My name, my work, my way. Sometimes I'd lie in bed after a double shift, hands aching, and stare at the glow of the appointment calendar filling up. No applause, no speeches, but it felt like purpose. Not just repairing things, but repairing the version of myself I used to believe in. The one they'd chipped away at until he thought success had to look like a suit and tie. I wasn't trying to make headlines. I just wanted to build something solid. Something that didn't care where I came from, what my GPA was, or whether my last name matched the blood in my veins. Just good work, done right, by someone who'd been invisible long enough. It was supposed to be a routine gig setting up temporary heating units at a tech conference downtown. The ballroom smelled like fresh carpet and startup money. I was elbow deep in wiring behind a curtain when someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Is this where the keynote cables are run?" I turned around, ready to explain that I was HVAC, not AV, but stopped when I saw the woman. Sharp navy blazer, no name tag, calm, clear eyes, not lost, just curious. I wiped my hands on my shirt. "No cables here," I said. "Just trying to make sure nobody freezes under those inspirational lights." She laughed. It wasn't forced. Good. I'd hate for our ideas to have icicles on them. We ended up talking for 10 minutes. I told her I liked the setup, clean layout, efficient airflow. She asked what I did full-time. I said I worked HVAC and ran a small fix-it business on the side. She leaned in. "Tell me more about that." I almost brushed it off. Almost gave her the stock line, just a little gig to stay busy. But something in her expression, not pity, not politeness, made me pause. So I told her. About FixFast. About the app. About how I'd built it to make service booking painless. How I wanted to grow it not into a franchise, but a community network. Local techs, vetted, reliable. Neighborhood first. She listened the whole time. No interruptions. No glazed eyes. "Sounds like you're solving a real problem," she said. "Most people overlook trades when they think of innovation, but the future's built on stuff like this. Practical, local, resilient." I shrugged. "People usually just want their sink fixed." She smiled. "Or their expectations." Then she handed me a card. Elena Marlowe, CEO, Clarion Ventures. I blinked at it like it was a joke. She just said, "Reach out if you ever want to talk shop," then disappeared into the ballroom, like she hadn't just lit a match under everything I thought was possible. I stared at the card for a long time before slipping it into my pocket. Still smelled like copper and drywall. Still had dirt under my nails. But suddenly, I wasn't just a guy fixing heaters anymore. I was a guy with a chance. 3 days after the conference, I was elbow deep in a busted AC unit when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Figured it was spam or another missed dentist appointment. But something made me pick up. "Rick? This is Elena Marlowe." I wiped sweat from my brow with the inside of my wrist. "Oh, huh. Hey. Hi. Smooth." "I've been thinking about our conversation," she said. "I like the fix-fast concept. There's something there. Would you be open to putting together a more formal pitch? Just a quick deck? Your roadmap? Any traction you've got? Sure. Yeah. Of course. Great. Let's schedule something next week. My assistant will reach out. Looking forward to it. She hung up before I could ask what a deck even was. I stood there in someone's attic, tools buzzing in the background, heart thudding like I'd just been dropped into a game I didn't know the rules to. That night, I stared at a blank PowerPoint screen like it was judging me. Slides, roadmaps, financial projections. I was a guy with a wrench and an app made in Squarespace. I started Googling startup pitch templates and downloaded about 6. All of them looked like they belonged to someone in a Patagonia vest with an MBA. I had none of that. Just bookings, testimonials, a half-finished prototype, and a lot of bruised knuckles. Every time I tried to write something confident, I heard Dad's voice in my head. Trash. Mistake. Wasted potential. I imagined Elena opening the file and shaking her head. This guy? Really? I almost bailed. Closed my laptop 3 times. Told myself she was just being polite. But then I thought of the people I'd helped. The families with no heat. The single mom whose breaker I replaced for free. The kid who tagged along on a job and asked me how to start a business. So I sat down, cracked my knuckles, and started writing. Not to impress her, but to remind myself what I'd built. No fluff. Just proof. Not everyone gets a shot like this. And if I was going to be in the room, I'd damn well earn my place there. I didn't sleep the night before. My shirt was ironed, my slides rehearsed, my hands sweaty. I showed up 10 minutes early and sat in the lobby, feeling like a kid who'd snuck into a private club. Everything was marble and glass and whisper quiet. I felt like drywall dust, just by existing in it. Elena came out herself. No assistant, no entourage. Just a firm handshake and a warm smile. You ready? Not even close, I thought. Yeah, I said. She led me into a small glass room. Not intimidating. Just professional. She offered coffee. I declined. Didn't want to jitter through my slides like a nervous intern. I plugged in my laptop and started the pitch. I walked her through the fix-fast model streamlined scheduling, local contractor vetting, flexible pricing for lower-income neighborhoods. I showed graphs I'd made in Excel, testimonials from repeat customers, my monthly growth chart scrawled with too many arrows. She didn't speak much, just nodded, took notes. When I reached the final slide, next steps, scaling options, I stopped, unsure if I should say more. My throat was dry. My voice steady, surprised. Even me. Elena looked up. I see 100 pitches a month, she said. Most of them are noise apps trying to solve problems that only exist in offices or investor pitch decks. But this is real. It's ugly work, but it's needed. You've already done the hardest part proving it works. I blinked. I'm glad you think so. She leaned back. What you're building, it's not just a business. It's a platform, infrastructure, and it's got legs. I'd like to help. Investment, mentorship, possibly a partnership with one of our logistics branches. We'd structure it properly, keep you in control. I sat there, stunned. You're serious? I don't waste my time, she said. The version of me from a year ago wouldn't have believed this moment. The version from a week ago might have ruined it with self-doubt. But right then, sitting across from someone who saw me not as charity, not as risk, but as a builder, I felt something shift. I didn't smile. I nodded. Steady. Focused. Let's build it, I said. The funding came through 2 weeks after the pitch. Nothing flashy. Just enough to move out of crawl spaces and into a converted garage unit. I called my first office. It had a leaky roof and smelled like old paint. But it was mine. I bought a used desk, a secondhand coffee maker, and a whiteboard I filled with scribbles that meant more to me than anything my family ever hung on the fridge. I brought in 2 guys I trusted, Luis, who I'd worked construction with for years, and Nia, a tech-savvy college dropout who'd been freelancing app work for scraps. I didn't have titles for them. Just trust. We worked 12, sometimes 16 hours a day fixing back-end bugs, updating the booking flow, crawling through actual basements when jobs stacked up faster than we could handle. We didn't talk about valuations or strategy decks. We talked about tools, reliability, and the people who couldn't afford to wait 6 days for a broken water heater to be seen. Some nights I'd sleep in the office, hoodie for a blanket, space heater humming in the corner. I'd wake up with a list already in my head, and I liked it that way. No distractions. No dinners filled with fake smiles and passive jabs. I hadn't spoken to my family since the night Dad spit on me, and I didn't plan to. Not yet. Maybe not ever. My inbox was no longer full of late payments and random spam. Now it had job offers, podcast invites, local press. Elena kept her word, connected me with people who didn't look down when I shook their hand. She didn't try to fix me, didn't package me into something cleaner. She just gave me room to run. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from something. I was running towards something that actually felt like mine. It happened on a Tuesday. I was under a house, fixing a busted duct line, when my phone started buzzing like it was on fire. Texts, calls, missed messages. At first I thought something was wrong. A payment bounce, a client complaint. I crawled out, wiped dirt from my face, and checked the notifications. Dude, you're on LinkedIn. Bro. She said your name. Elena mentioned you. Publicly. Confused, I opened the link someone had sent. It was a clip from a startup leadership panel, Elena speaking on stage, polished and calm as ever, mid-answer on a question about finding unconventional founders. You want grit? She said. You want someone who understands real-world problems? I'll give you one. Rick Wilson. No Ivy League degree, no seed round, just built his business out of sweat, skill, and a cracked phone screen. That's what resilience looks like. I sat there frozen. Then I hit play again, just to be sure I'd heard it right. My name, said like it belonged in that room, like it mattered. By noon, the clip was all over my feed. Comments poured in, some from people I'd worked with, others I hadn't heard from in years. One guy I went to high school with who never even looked at me back then DM'd me to catch up sometime. A former manager who once told me I lacked polish sent a congratulations note, like we'd been lifelong friends. It was weird, not bad, just surreal. Suddenly, people noticed. Clients who used to haggle now wanted to be listed on our homepage. Developers who ghosted my emails were now asking if we were hiring. The inbox that used to be a graveyard was now a waiting list. And somewhere in the flood of messages, I saw a name I hadn't seen in months. Mason. Just one line. Saw the clip. Guess you made something out of yourself after all. I didn't respond. Not yet. After the clip went semi-viral, the messages trickled in. First from Sarah, short, cautious. Proud of you, Rick. Really. Then Mason again. Guess you made something out of yourself after all. Like it was still up for debate. Then Mom called. Twice. Left a voicemail on the second one. Her voice was brittle, like she'd practiced the words too many times before hitting record. We saw the video. Your father, he's processing things in his own way. But I just wanted to say, I always knew you had something special. We're happy for you, sweetheart. I didn't listen to it twice. I didn't save it. There was no message from Dad. Just silence, the kind that wasn't empty, but heavy. I knew he'd seen it. I could picture him sitting in his study, whiskey in hand, watching the clip with that clenched jaw he got when things didn't go his way. The kind of silence that wasn't ignorance. It was pride being swallowed and choked on. Because it didn't come from him. I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I wanted revenge. I just didn't trust it. The words felt too clean, too convenient. Where were they when I was breaking my back in crawl spaces? Where were they when I graduated alone, Fixed cars in the dark. Slept in a room with pipes for a ceiling. I wasn't angry. Just tired. Tired of being remembered only when someone else validated me. So I let the messages sit. Unread. Unanswered. Let them wonder what silence felt like on the other side. The envelope came through Elena's assistant. Thick cardstock, gold trim, all the corporate sparkle I used to roll my eyes at. Midwest Future Leaders Summit. Keynote panel. Innovation from the ground up. I scanned the lineup. Names I didn't recognize. Except one. Charles Wilson. Executive sponsor. Listed under his company's logo, the logistics firm where he'd spent 20 years making sure no one forgot how important he was. I stared at the paper for a long time. My name was printed 2 lines below his. At first, I laughed. Sharp, bitter, involuntary. Of course, the first time we'd be in the same room again would be on opposite ends of a stage. And of course, now that I had a seat at the table, it would be one he couldn't control. I thought about declining, about ghosting the invite and disappearing back into the comfort of drywall and duct tape. But part of me wanted to see his face. Wanted to know if he'd look me in the eye or stare through me like he always had. Wanted to say something, even if I didn't say a word. I called Elena. "You going?" she asked, like she already knew the answer. "I don't know," I admitted. She was quiet for a beat. "Sometimes the best story you can tell," she said, "is showing up when they thought you never would." I didn't commit, just hung up and stared out the window of my office, watching the wind pull leaves off the trees. The invite sat on my desk for 2 more days. Then I circled the date on the calendar and got to work. The event was held at a downtown hotel that smelled like new carpet and networking anxiety. I wore a clean black shirt, dark jeans, and boots that still had work dust in the soles. Let them see me exactly as I was. I sat backstage, going over my notes. Not a script, just touch points. Perseverance. Practical innovation. Building something real, not theoretical. I didn't write it to impress them. I wrote it for the kid I used to be. The one who stayed quiet so no one would tell him to leave. When they called my name, I stepped into the light. The room was full suits, laptops, curated smiles. I could feel their eyes scanning me. A few recognized my name from the clip. Some were probably wondering if I was just a viral blip. I didn't give them time to decide. I told them about Fix Fast. How it started with a neighbor's broken furnace. How it grew from a side hustle into a platform. How trust, speed, and hands-on work still mattered in a world obsessed with automation and polish. I talked about what it means to build something when no one hands you the blueprint to keep showing up, even when no one claps. I didn't name names. Didn't mention my family. But when I said, sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who never see you until someone else does, I felt it land. From the stage, I saw him, Charles. Second row, arms folded, jaw locked in that familiar clenched line. He didn't blink, just watched, like he wasn't sure what he was looking at. When the panel ended, people approached. Handshakes, compliments, questions about growth strategy. I smiled, nodded, answered politely. Then I saw him walking toward me. "Rick," he said, stopping just a few feet away. I didn't realize how much you'd done." I just looked at him. He shifted uncomfortably. "Your mother showed me the clip, and this today it's impressive. I was wrong. About a lot of things." I let the silence sit there between us like a wall. He extended his hand. I looked at it. Then, at him. Nodded once. No smile. No handshake. Then I turned and walked away. I used to think closure meant confrontation. That I'd get the last word. Win the argument. Finally make him admit he was wrong. All of it. I thought maybe if I said the right thing in the right tone at the right time, he'd crumble a little. Apologize. Say he loved me. Meant it. But walking away from him that day, hearing him try to shape history into something softer, more convenient, I realized I didn't need any of that. Because his approval was no longer the currency I lived by. Closure isn't a door slamming shut. It's a door you stop standing in front of. I didn't forgive him. Not really. Forgiveness implies a kind of empathy I wasn't sure I owed. But I wasn't angry, either. Not anymore. Because I had something he never gave me. Proof. Not of worth, not of talent, but of self. A life built from drywall, duct tape, and long nights. A name I'd reclaimed. One job, one referral, one decision at a time. I didn't need to change his mind. I changed my own. Some nights, I still hear his voice, the biting comments, the silence at the dinner table, the night he spat at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. But those memories don't carry weight anymore. They're shadows on a wall I tore down brick by brick. What I built in its place was solid. Real. I had a team who believed in what we were doing. Clients who trusted us. People who saw me not as the adopted kid who didn't fit, but as someone who showed up, got it done, and made something that worked. And that was enough. Not revenge. Not redemption. Just release. Letting go not for his sake, but for mine. Because I finally understood something that had taken me years to learn. Being seen by the right people matters more than being accepted by the wrong ones. And no apology, spoken or silent, could compete with that kind of peace. A year later, we outgrew the garage. Now Fix Fast runs out of a repurposed fire station on the east side. Brick walls, open rafters, oil stains that won't scrub out perfect. We've got a 7-person team. Most don't have degrees. Some have records. One was sleeping in his truck when I hired him. Every single one of them knows what it feels like to be overlooked. That's the unofficial job requirement. I don't just run the company, I mentor now too. Speak at trade schools, community colleges, re-entry programs. Not about success, that word's too loaded. I talk about resilience. About showing up. About building value before anyone gives you permission to call it that. Last month, I hired a kid named Marcus. 17. Sharp as hell. Hands steady. Eyes tired. Said he'd been turned down for 5 apprenticeships because he didn't interview well. First day on site, he rewired a breaker faster than I could explain it. I asked where he learned that. YouTube. He shrugged. I paid him double what he asked for, and gave him keys to the supply closet. People like that, they're not broken. They're buried. And I've made it my job to help them dig out. We're not just fixing things anymore. We're creating something that lasts. A place where your worth isn't measured in pedigree or polish, but in persistence. In how many times you kept going when quitting would have been easier. That's the kind of family I want to build. The kind that chooses each other. And keeps choosing. I still get the occasional message from my old life. Mason sent a photo of his new baby. Mom emails around the holidays. I respond when it feels right. No bitterness. Just boundaries. As for Dad, I haven't heard from him since the summit. Last I heard, he's retiring soon. I wonder if he'll rewrite the story in his head, tell people he always knew I'd make it. That's fine. Let him. Because I'm not here to win his approval. I'm here to build a world where people like me never have to beg for it in the first place. This isn't revenge. It's reclamation. And the only person who defines my worth, now and forever, is me. This story was intense, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.